Hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some practice problems related to perfect competition. So for part A, it says draw a perfectly competitive market and firm in long-run equilibrium, then show the shifts that happen in both the market and the firm graphs. So we're going to draw basically the same thing 3 times, and then we'll come back, obviously, and actually go through and solve these problems. So if you want to pause me, actually, and draw your graphs, that's fine, or you can draw them with me. So we'll start with all 6 pictures and quantity and price. So again, good practice, get in the habit of kind of knowing how to draw these graphs. Because if you're taking an AP exam, or if you're thinking, this is something I want to do, it can be really helpful to just kind of have that muscle memory of how to do these. And also as you do them, you'll get faster and faster at them. So you won't feel like it quite takes so long. So again, we're just going to draw each one of these and label, making sure that we have little dotted lines to label the prices and the quantities. And I'm just going to use Q1 and P1 because that's where we're starting. But we'll see here. And we'll have Mr. DARP, and that's P1, and so I'll just put 1 there. And we have Mr. DARP, P1, and the third one, Mr. DARP, P1. Now we're going to need marginal cost curves. Marginal cost, which is the firm's supply curve, and marginal cost, the firm's supply curve. And these are the firm's demand curves too. So just kind of, if you want, you can put a little F there to remind yourself that that's the firm's demand curve, or the demand for the firm's products. Okay, so then we're going to need ATC and AVC on each of these, because some of these questions say the firm will produce but sustain a loss. So we're going to need to have an ATC and an AVC. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right off the bat that it's easier if your ATCs and your AVCs are much more like a V than a really wide U. If you make your stuff really wide like this, it's not going to be easy to draw. So make them really, really up, steep lines, and it'll be a lot easier. So nice and steep. Right? There's nothing wrong with having really steep lines here. You do need to have the minimum points for these, right? Be the minimum of ATC and AVC be at the marginal cost, though. Nice and steep lines. ATC, AVC, ATC, and the AVC. Okay, so now we've got basically the basic graph, right? Before we do that, actually, let's go ahead and label where they're going to produce. Remember, they produce the quantity where MR equals MC. So put that here. So that's quantity 1, and quantity 1. Okay. Show the effect of a widely reported study linking a product to cancer. The firm is going to produce but sustain a loss. Show the loss with shading. So that's going to affect the taste and preferences of whatever this product is, and it will reduce the demand for it. We have to be kind of careful when we do this, because it's telling us the demand falls, and so the price is going to fall, but the price is going to be just enough they lose money, but not so much that they shut down. So we don't want to come below where we've drawn this AVC, right? So we're going to have Mr. DARP go down, but not a whole lot. So we're going to kind of say demand goes down just a little bit, decreases to the left, and so we get a new price, quantity 2, and we'll say price 2. I'm actually going to say demand 2, just so it's nice and kind of consistent here. And Mr. DARP is going to fall just a little bit. So we'll put MR2 and P2. And I'm going to zoom in just so you can see exactly where I'm drawing this. Now, where are they going to produce? They're going to produce where MR equals MC, right? So they're going to produce at that dot right there, where the new MR, this MR line that goes across, intercepts the original marginal cost. So then we go down, Q2, right? So they've got slightly less product, and we go up to the ATC to see how much they're losing. So we compare price 2, the second price, to the ATC value at the quantity that they're producing. And then we go over, and that's our loss rectangle. Okay, so we got to kind of be very careful about this. This price that they're getting is P2. And again, we go up to the ATC. Notice the ATC. We go up to that at the quantity that we're producing at. That's going to be our loss rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Again, that was kind of tough because you've got to get it right between the ATC and the AVC. The next one says shows the effect of a consumer expectation that prices will rise in the future. The firm's going to produce and earn a profit, show the profit with shading. So if there's a consumer expectation that prices are going up, then people will buy more today rather than wait until the prices are higher. So we would expect demand to rise. And for this one, thankfully, right, we don't need to be terribly careful about how big of a shift it is because they're just going to earn a profit. So there's a higher quantity, a higher price. And so then we see Mr. DARP moving up. And I'm just going to draw it like I'm over here, MR2, P2. So Mr. DARP shifts up. And it's getting a little bit messy, but actually if we know what we're looking for, it's not going to be too bad. Remember, we're looking for where's the quantity where MR equals MC. That's the quantity that we're going to produce. So the new Mr. DARP, the new MR, and the MC are here. Let's put a dot. And then let's go down to the quantity, Q2. So we see that the firm's producing more quantity because we've kind of moved the increased quantity that they produce, and we see that in the market as well. Now we're going to shade the profit rectangle, so we compare the price to the ATC. Now the price is P2. Well, where's the ATC? If we follow that yellow brick road right down to this value, right, that's our ATC, that shows us our profit per unit, right? That's that thick black line I just drew as the profit per unit. We're comparing price to ATC. If we go over to the y-axis, you should be able to see the profit rectangle. Now, I want to point out something to you that students all the time make this mistake, and you're not going to make this mistake because you're a smart student. You don't make these kinds of mistakes. This is silly. You notice this little like area right here where ATC is kind of at the bottom of the ATC like that? Students all the time want to just shade all the way to the original MR. That's wrong. This old Mr. DARP, he's dead to us. He doesn't exist anymore. So pretend like he doesn't exist. We are going to stop at this value on the ATC. Remember, we're following this yellow brick road of Q2. We're just going to go from P2 to the ATC and then over. So there is going to be a little bit of gap in here. There has to be. We're not going to go to that original Mr. DARP or DeFarp number 1. Okay, now the last one says show the effect of a change in consumer taste that takes the price to the point where the firm will shut down. So this one, the price is going to fall really far and it's going to have to go really low. Demand curve number 2, right? So demand is decreasing a lot. We have this kind of new Mr. DARP that's very low, MR1, P1, or sorry, that's MR2, P2, P2, Q2. So the price falls a lot, the quantity is going to fall a lot. Now, here's the question. This firm is shutting down, but we still want to be able to shade where's the loss rectangle. So one way to do it is actually to just pick any quantity value, right, any one that you want, and just connect the ATC and the AVC lines. And so we just kind of pick any one of these quantities. It could be, you know, the one where they're at or wherever. And you just basically say that to that is their loss over, right? So we go over. Because by doing that, when we shade that loss, when we connect the ATC to the AVC, we're saying that's the average fixed cost. That's the vertical distance between the two. And if we multiply it by whatever quantity we want, that's their total fixed cost. And that's how much they're going to lose. So the shaded amount, you could actually shade it going all the way over to here. And mathematically, if we drew the ATC and the AVC correctly, if the distances were correct, then as the quantity rises, that rectangle would get thinner and thinner and longer. So that's kind of how that would operate. Okay, now let's take a look at part B. This is really just like a quick review of the profitability conditions, and I think it's a helpful spot for you to keep your information. If the price is above the ATC at the quantity where they're producing, then the firm is earning a profit. And will firms temporarily produce at a loss? Well, they're not at a loss, so we say, nah, not at a loss. And will firms leave the market or enter in the long run? Well, in the long run, if firms are earning a profit, we would expect other firms to enter. Now, price at a minimum of ATC. If the price equals minimum ATC where they're producing, they're earning normal profit or zero economic profit. And we'd say they're not at a loss, so it doesn't matter there. And neither, right? There's no profits and there's no losses, so neither one. You're not going to see firms enter, you're not going to see them leave. If the price is greater than the ATC, or sorry, can't read. If the price is less than the ATC and the price is above the AVC, well, the first part, the comparison here, price is below the ATC, that tells us they're earning a loss. But if the price is bigger than the AVC, then yes, they will produce. Okay, and we know that in the long run, so this is like in the short run, right? This is the short run. We know that in the long run, though, firms will exit because they're earning losses. Now in this one, price is less than ATC. So again, we're earning a loss, right? So this first half tells us, are we earning a profit or a loss? The second half tells us the price is below the AVC. So no, they will shut down. And we know that in the long run, firms will exit. Okay, hopefully that helped you. See you next time.